Hello, good afternoon. We're getting ready to get started on our program for today. I'm really excited to be talking about AI, MedTech, and healthcare, and how we can use AI and MedTech. These lights are killing me. How we can use AI in MedTech to improve healthcare. Really hoping for an interactive discussion and conversation. And we also have some amazing panelists today. Welcome. Oh, all you can see is the middle of my, okay, we'll try this. Welcome to the folks on Zoom. I hope you can hear me. Maybe put something in the chat just to let us know you can hear us. Awesome. And welcome to everyone in the room. It's great to see all of you. So this MedTech Connect series is something that we have been doing this year as MedDevice Africa in collaboration with the Invention Education Program at Kenyatta University. We're very, very thankful to the Invention Education Program at KU because they have been funding this series, which is a very important series to really talk about medical technology and how we can improve it, how we can accelerate the industry, how we can do better, how we can do more, how we can move from where we are as consumers of medical technology to where we can be producers of medical technology that is appropriate for our context on the African continent, and very specifically for Kenya. My name is Wamboi Nyabero. I'm the CEO of MedDevice Africa. And at MedDevice Africa, we have set a vision to place 10 million medical devices in African hospitals by the year 2040. And we hope to do that by collaboration with startups, with academia, with anyone actually who wants to do medical, who wants to produce medical devices. So if you're in that business, we would love to collaborate with you. All right, so enough of that. I'll hand it over to Marianne from the Invention Education Program at KU so that she can give us a brief overview of their program and what they are trying to do at Kenyatta University, which is some really exciting stuff. And especially if you're looking to do a master's program, I would highly recommend it. Marianne.
Thanks, Wamboi. Thank you so much. My name is Marianne Morioki. I currently serve as the education coordinator for the master's program at Kenyatta University. I'll be telling you more about it. So for those who don't know much about Kenyatta University, it was founded in 1985. It mostly started out specializing in education. Currently, it's ranked as the second university in Kenya, UN being the first, but we can debate that. Student enrollment over 70,000, and the campus is on Thika Road. I hope a lot of you have had an opportunity to visit Kenyatta University. It was the first university in Kenya to offer a degree in biomedical engineering. So you had Wamboi mention invention education. So invention education is a way of learning where we focus more on problem solving and active learning. If a lot of you here have gone through 844, you remember how we had to cram and cram and cram and cram. So it's almost like it's almost a CBC-based kind of learning, where active learning, we use interdisciplinary approach. So we don't just, if you're an engineer, we don't assume you're only going to engineer amongst yourself. We want you to work with doctors, to work with guys in business, guys in sales. And then it focuses a lot on collaboration, empathy, problem identification, research, prototyping and iteration until do things multiple times until you get to be better. And then again, it's aligned with Kenya's vision for innovation. Again, aligned with just the vision of competency-based education. So in Kenyatta University, the first program that is based off of the invention education is a Masters of Science in Biomedical Engineering with specialization in medical device innovation. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. So this being the first program, like I said, the specialization is medical device innovation. It is not a research-based master's. It is a very industrial-based master's. So you don't get to do a thesis here. You get to do a project. You don't get to spend just hours like doing working on a thesis project. So a lot of the thesis, you get to work on a project that is interdisciplinary, where you have business, you have medicine, you have engineering. Then again, this program is very closely aligned or similar to Rice's University Global Medical Innovation. So they are our implementing partners, and the master's program is very similar, but of course contextualized for the Kenyan setting. The program is also currently funded by the Lemelson Foundation. They are a very big ecosystem partner trying to make sure that medical device innovation grows in the country. And then it's in line with invention education. It's a big focus on clinical immersion, practical prototyping skills, and industry engagement. So when you think about biomedical engineering, medical device innovation, it is an intersection of engineering, medicine, and business. And you'll see our classes, again, are very focused on these three main areas. So our curriculum, there are some classes that will be a bit focused on medicine. So we have a class like clinical immersion, where you spend a lot of time in hospitals, understanding the problem. This is a key part of invention education, where we are need-based as opposed to solution-driven. So we have a class like industry seminar, where we have guys from industry coming every day to talk to the students. Then it's an engineering master, so you do have classes like prototyping, biomaterials, medical device, quality management. There's a quantitative math class, project, and then business hand in hand with this. We want to give you business knowledge as you finish your master's. So there's a class on business and entrepreneurship, professional development, project management in healthcare, global regulatory strategies. So basically by the end of your 18 months there, you get to have had classes in all the three sectors, with the hope that as you bring a device into the market, you'll not just have engineering knowledge, but you'll have knowledge in all the three sectors, making you a better candidate to be an innovator. So other aspects of the program. So there's just the education part. On top of that, we do a lot of outreach and events dissemination. A key example is an event like this. This is in AI in healthcare. Next month, we have an event on how to pitch a medical device. I think we've had one on IP before, but as a university and a program, education is very important to us. So we do have a lot of events like Wamboi mentioned. This year we have a series of 6 events that are just focused on outreach and knowledge dissemination. Another aspect of the program, we do have a design studio, fully kitted, that is able, that you can do all your prototyping, woodworking, metalworking, 3D printing, embedded systems, textiles and upholstery. So as part of the program, because it's very project-based, you get to do a lot of your tinkering in the design studio or makerspace. And we do open it a little bit sometimes to our ecosystem partners. That's the design studio. We do offer some grants for Catalyst grants to encourage innovation, because the program is very innovation-based. So to help guys start on their innovation and just come up with help them start their projects, we do offer some grants. A big part of the program is mentorship. Every student who comes into the program is assigned a series of mentors throughout their time in the program. They have peer mentors, they have faculty mentors, they have clinical mentors, mentors in the business side. So mentorship is a very big part, so that as you get ready to come into industry, you have all these guys who have held your hand throughout the program. There's a required attachment, which we do help in getting attachments. We have student competitions and boot camps, which we do sponsor, as well as there are student exchange programs that are available. I know, like right now, we have some students from Rice in the room. So they are here this summer with the hope next summer we'll also send some of our students to Rice. So that's just a bit of some of the other aspects of the program. So from this group, I'm hoping that some of you will be interested in joining the master's program, or if not, would offer to be mentors to, like, if you're an expert in a certain part or in a certain industry or in business or sales, and you want to work with students, we invite you to come and work with Kenyatta University, because the graduates who graduate, we really want them to be plugged into the industry and to have our ecosystem support. So generally, the engagements we are usually looking for is student mentors in business, entrepreneurship, quality, regulatory, IP, industry, and all of this will hold the hand of our students as they go through the program. Then, of course, we are looking for guys who would potentially employ our student, guest speakers, project sponsors, because all the projects our students will work on will come from industry and not the traditional sense where it comes from academia. So program advisors, event sponsors, generally, those are the kind of partnerships and engagements we are looking for. And if you're interested in any of this, at the end of it, June will put, she'll put a QR code where she invites you to sign up. Outside of that, we are going to be here during the networking session. Feel free to approach me. Guys from IVE, just stand up so that guys can see you. This is June Madete. She's the director of the program. That's Yubri. He's the guy in the design studio who does all the tinkering and our admin. Feel free to approach any of them at the end of this if you have any questions or you need any information. So what's in it for you? If you're a company, CSR, important, you get to meet your CSR goals. If you're looking to hire, you get to hire interns. Interns are cheap, so you get to train them as interns, and then by the time they're graduating, they have the skill sets that you need. Sometimes for problems, there's costs. Like when students are working on your solutions, they are cheap labor, so it's cost effective. And then enhanced brand visibility. We are a university with access to a very big network. Either student, we work with other universities, and then you get to shape the future of the workforce. So please, at the end of it, please sign up to be a sponsor, be a mentor, and work with us. I'll take any questions if anyone has any questions about the program. Bachelor of Science.
And can it be Bachelor of Science in Nursing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it has to be it can't be a Bachelor of Arts or it has to be a Bachelor of Science, because it is it's a science-based program. So we do, if you come with a Bachelor of Science, we do have a place for general and technical elective. So you'd be required, in your elective, you'd be required to take a more engineering class. So if it's someone who has a Bachelor's of Engineering, they would be required to take maybe physiology or something. So there's opportunity to ramp up a little bit for you to be able to work within the cohort. Yeah. From here, I think I'll invite Wambui, as it's AI in healthcare. Like I read last week, I saw Microsoft said that their AI is 4 times more accurate in diagnosing, diagnosis. So I'd be very happy to hear what you guys as a panel think about AI in healthcare and such things. So Wambui, you can, yeah.
Thank you, Marianne. And like I said, highly, highly recommend that the program at KU. And now I am very happy to invite Ms. Josephine Kaneru, a legal researcher at the Center for IP and IT at Strathmore University, to tell us a little bit about ethics and governance in the use of AI in African healthcare systems. This will set the stage for the work, for the conversation we're going to be having around AI, MedTech, and healthcare.
Thank you, thank you. Shall I sit? Okay. Hi, everyone. How are we doing? We're good? All right. It's good to see everyone here. And I loved the introductory remarks from the two speakers, because actually I realized that inventing education is doing everything that I've come to recommend that we do. So I loved hearing about the interdisciplinary nature of your program, and also the fact that you are more needs-based rather than just creating solutions, solutions to imaginary problems. So my task today was to set the stage for the discussion that comes later. But before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Josephine Kaneru. I'm a legal researcher at Strathmore University at the Center for Intellectual Property and Information Technology Law. And my work basically is around data governance and ensuring that we govern data well, so that by the time it's used to create AI systems, then it meets the needs of the people, and also we minimize the harms that might come up. So I'm not a health expert, but I was really looking forward to this, because I've loved just thinking about how my work actually applies in healthcare, and I find it very, very fascinating. So I'll be discussing the ethics and governance in the use of AI in African healthcare. And if I can see the next slide. I wanted to show us this image, and it's called, the researchers called it the grand challenges of human-centered AI. And so when I was thinking about this presentation, I wondered who would be in the room, whether it would be patients, nurses, doctors, inventors, investors. I wasn't sure. But then in seeing that med devices core value, one of the core values is people first, I thought I would talk about the patient. That's the human that we are creating solutions for. And I think we all fall in that category once in a while. We are patients. And so in looking at AI systems or any other tools, tech tools that are used in healthcare, we want to make sure that they work for us, that they don't harm us, and that they increase the well-being of the human. So this, if we could just zoom a bit so that we see the full, out a bit. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, so this image just actually summarizes the work I've been doing at CPIT in terms of AI governance for the last 2 years or so. In around 2023, I realized that most of our work was actually just looking at what applications there are in AI on the continent, and also identifying risks. And so we were looking at AI in terms of the end stage, where it's reached the deployment stage. But since then, and especially with the governance frameworks that have been developing, we've had to go back and look at the data governance aspect. And so when I saw this image, I really loved just looking at it, because it introduces everything I want to talk about, which is how do we govern data from the beginning at the data collection and curation stage, meaning we protect the privacy and data protection of the patients. We consider issues around informed consent, and then at the model design or tools design, whatever tools you're designing. And then by the time you're deploying, you've been identifying risks and addressing them at each stage. So I loved this, and I just love the name, the grand challenges of human-centered AI. And I think if you just think of the patient and just center your design process on the patient, then you're able to wonder what challenges might the patient have at the point I'm collecting data that I'll use to train a system later. At the development stage, then you'll think, how would a patient feel using this tool? How would it affect their well-being, both mentally and physically? And then the result of that is that we achieve responsible AI in healthcare. If we could see the next slide. So I wanted to discuss just these three: data privacy, consent and bias, algorithmic bias, impact assessments, and participatory engagement. So that's why I was really excited to hear about the needs-based model that Inventing Education takes, because that brings me to the last item. Let me just start from the beginning. So data privacy, consent, and algorithmic bias. I would think of this again in the whole life cycle. So at the data collection stage, how do we ensure that patients and any other data subjects involved where personal data is being collected or being used in the AI, in the healthcare system, how do we ensure that they give informed, freely given, and unambiguous consent, which is the definition of consent under the informed consent under the Data Protection Act. Just to give an example of consent that was not freely given, I think we are all aware of the recent case of WorldCoin, where Kenyan data subjects had to give their iris biometric data, iris scans, and it was in exchange for some money. And recently the court interpreted that whole case and decided that that was not free consent because it was in exchange for something, and someone was taking advantage of the needs that people have for some money. So at any stage that people in the healthcare ecosystem are collecting data from patients, from communities, from populations, how do you ensure that data is freely given and the person giving you is informed of how you're going to use that data? Consent, privacy. I'll mention something small on privacy. I think most of us in this room are aware that when you collect data and you're going to curate it, maybe to train models or to train any tools, then you have to maybe anonymize any personally identifiable information that you might have. So that's how you ensure privacy. And also impact assessments. No, before I go to that, I'll mention algorithmic bias. On bias, actually, this is one of the risks that we kept identifying in AI systems. And the major challenge that brought this up, especially at the point we were doing some research in 2023 and 2024, was that most of the systems and tools that we use on the continent are not created on the continent. So I'll give an example. In 2023, we mapped assistive devices and tools that were being used on the continent for people with disabilities. And we were mapping tools used by deaf people, tools used by deaf people, by blind people, by people who use wheelchairs. And so most tools that were being used were created in the West and then would be used on the continent. There was a tool that was a navigation tool for people who use wheelchairs, so that when they go into a building or they come to Westlands, they're aware of which streets are more accessible. And this is a challenge that we all face really with any navigation system. If the tool didn't get proper training with local data, then it doesn't know the roads, it doesn't know how to pronounce the names of the roads. It might take you to a road that has ceased to exist. And so that's one of the challenges. The other one was with regard to language accessibility. Most of the tools developed were in English. And so the people on the continent who maybe speak other languages could not use those tools effectively. So how do we make sure that accessibility is improved for all people? I'll just highlight one of the tools that we identified on the continent that was very, very fascinating. It's called Abena AI. Abena is a Twi word. Twi is a Ghanaian language. And Abena AI was the only tool at the time that was curated for Twi language. So people who could not speak English could use that voice assistant, especially blind people. and people with other disabilities who might need that assistance. I'll mention something brief on impact assessments. I think this is very important. Anything in law, you have to do due diligence. You have to look at the situation, identify potential risks, and then fix them at each stage. And I'll take us just back to that whole life cycle with the grand challenges of human-centered AI. So you have to identify risks. You have to do an impact assessment at the data collection and curation stage. You have to do that at the development stage, and you have to do that when deploying tools. And also very important, I think, in healthcare is that engagement with patients and users and medical professionals to find out what issues are coming up and then fixing those issues. Finally, participatory engagement. The last two, impact assessments and participation, very useful, especially when talking about low resource contexts, because I think it's in human nature to identify where there is need and then create a solution and then take it to the people without really engaging the people and finding out what they need. And I think participatory engagement is a key aspect of achieving ethical AI. Next slide, please. Thank you. It's okay, that's okay. The next thing I was going to discuss was how we can achieve this governance of AI, especially in healthcare. And I found this statement by the UN very, very interesting. And it's basically saying that we cannot just allow people to govern themselves. You cannot just allow developers to self-govern. And this is what mainly standards and all the ethical AI principles that we have, that's what they do. So I'll just highlight the UNESCO recommendation on the ethics of AI. It was among the first frameworks that was actually created or released to just govern and to just give guiding principles that can be relied on. But we can't just rely on that. We have to have some sort of binding law. The problem is we are developing the binding laws as we go, but my recommendation, which is what I'm going to, is that we can actually use the existing laws that we have. So next slide, please. So in creating, thank you, in creating both principles, standards, which the first two are non-binding, they are often voluntary and self-governance. We also have to rely on binding law so that we hold people responsible. And there I just highlight the Data Protection Act of 2019, which takes care of the issue I mentioned about data privacy and protection of the people, about the principles of processing any data, where you have to make sure you process it fairly, lawfully, and transparently. And then the Digital Health Act of 2023 is also very key in data governance, especially for health data. Next slide. Thank you. So how do we integrate both the binding and non-binding frameworks into making sure that we govern the healthcare system and achieve ethical AI? So one is integrate these frameworks into existing rules in making sure that we achieve that we deploy AI that actually takes care of the patient and make sure that risks are minimized. Then we have to expand their current roles. And there's an example I saw of this in terms of just expanding the role of existing frameworks, where that will be in the next few slides, where I think it was around 2012, the UN released, sorry, the UN body, the World Health Organization, released two resolutions on governing medical devices, on how to make sure that they are registered and evaluated and then registered. And so the Pharmacy and Poisons Board took that up and then expanded their mandate in terms of evaluating and registering medical devices. And I think that's a model we can take right now. Okay, thank you so much. That's a model we can take right now in terms of just integrating AI governance into existing regulations. Next slide. I'll just skip that because that's just basically about what I've mentioned, which is we have to integrate co-regulation and self-regulation with actual binding laws. I know for sure that, especially with the Digital Health Act and Data Protection Act, we'll continue creating specific regulation, binding regulation for most AI applications. We can go to the next slide. Just to summarize what I've just said, I'll start from the end, which is that the primary client is the patient. So my concern will just be making sure that any product that is released, any processes that happen, and we're applying AI, even if it's as simple as a nurse relying on ChatGPT to clarify something, they have to prioritize the client. And then we have to consider ethical frameworks at all stages of the development. And key is in the data collection stage, which I think a lot of people forget because we come to fix problems later. And finally, we have to integrate both binding and non-binding frameworks in governing AI in healthcare. I think I'll end there. Thank you.
And I think we'll hold questions to the end of the panel, unless anyone has a very burning question about ethics and governance. Okay, there's one burning question in the back. Okay, just 1 second. Let's wait to get the microphone. I hope it's a brief question, otherwise we may have to hold it to the end. But go ahead.
Okay. My name is Derek. Yeah, I'm kind of nervous. But the question is this. What's so private about your health? I mean, ukipata malaria is the same as if I get it. When you get common cold, it's the same. When you get the flu, it's the same. So what is so private about your health? I mean, maybe the genomic sequence that is unique to you. I believe in the future, the amount of data produced will be so high that privacy will be relevant. So the only thing that we should be looking at is ethics. So the question is, how do you make sure the AI itself and the people working in AI are aligned for the best human goal?
Thank you for that question. Do you mind if we hold that question until after we've had the panel discussion? And I promise you, we will answer your question.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So next, I actually have a treat for you. I'm not sure. Is Jasmine's question about ethics and governance, or can we also hold it? Okay. All right. So our next very quick presentation puts a focus on an innovator, Caleb Jeffune, and I hope I have not completely murdered your name. I probably have. But really looking forward to hearing a little bit from somebody who is actually already putting into practice AI in healthcare. Karibu.
Thank you. I guess I'm the tallest. Yeah, so I don't know. I should sit or what. Okay, sure. Hi, everyone. For context, I'm a Gen Z. And I built Therabot. So I just like give a very, very brief presentation because of time. So Therabot is an AI therapy assistant. And the reason why I created this was I was heartbroken on an 11th floor. Please don't judge. I was told the famous words, you know, it's not you, it's me. And then it happened. And so I tried to look for therapy. It was expensive. At that time, I was working at M-Pesa, and you know, you have to like, like the whole day you're at work, and then during the evening, like therapists have their own special clients in the evening. So you have to choose for your own time. And so we were looking for a solution that is cheap, affordable, and accessible anywhere, anytime. And that's why we created Therabot. Next slide. So we launched last year, July. Next week is our birthday. And since we have 21,500 users. Next. So these are the problems that we are trying to solve. Few trained professional therapists, stigmatization around therapy. Therapy is expensive, and then no one wants to talk about their stuff because, you know, we were grown up from a background like that one. Next. So now these are in a span of 1 year, this is what we have been able to build. So we started with the WhatsApp chatbot where we're like, okay, let's get people to actually trust the AI, because we were at that point whereby people are not yet trusting the AI. And so we started the WhatsApp chatbot, and our users wanted more. So we went to a conversational AI chatbot whereby you just like go and talk. And then from there, now we went to group therapies where AI matches 3 to 5 people together in a different location. Let's go do dance therapy, art therapy, and all these things. And then a physical therapist is assigned to these 3 to 5 people groups. And then we went to TheraLink, whereby we were saying, it's not just enough to give these guys AI therapies. What about if we link them to physical therapists actually? And then we went to Thera IoT, which is a very good one. So our users wanted something to touch, something to feel, something they can walk around with, something they can talk to, they can hug, and things like that. So we came up with something called Thera IoT, so whereby we were bringing therapy inside teddy bears, therapy inside pillows, therapy inside Alexa. So Alexa, I want to talk to Therabot today, and then things like that. And then we also like have something called a therapy booth, whereby I can just like walk inside a booth, talk, choose an avatar, and then work out. So that therapy booth is basically for people who don't have internet access, or just like a group like this. We just like install a therapy booth in there, and then you guys walk in and have therapy. And then we built an API whereby other organizations can build therapy models on top of us, because we have this rich data. And so we opened it for people to actually build on top of us, and actually people building on top of what we currently have. And then TheraPsycho. So we were like, for us to win in this market, we also like have to capture therapists. So we formed a community of therapists and told them, come, let's build this together, and let's see what happens next. Next. So far we have 995,000 sessions. We are used in 84 countries. We built this for Africa, but then the adoption is out of Africa, like a lot. And most of our paying users are actually out of Africa. And that is a challenge, Yeah. Next. Good. So this is how it actually works. So if you have our mobile app, or if you have our WhatsApp chat, or WhatsApp, we have our AI models there, and then we have a therapist agent that makes sure that the therapy, like the AI response that you're being given, is safe. And it's safe to the context that it cannot harm. We know that like AI right now is still hallucinating and things like that. But then I know we are getting to a point whereby, we will be so grounded in things like this. Yes, next. Good. hello@therabot.com. So try www.trytherabot.com. And then next slide. Since we are all Gen Zs here, we have 15 free sessions for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Caleb. I'm not sure we're all Gen Zs here. I think my gray hair gives it away, but anyway, thank you for your great presentation. So we're going to move to the panel. Is Dr. Mandela online? Not yet? Okay, that's okay. So I'll invite Dr. Michael Nzungi to join us. And it looks like June was hoping that I would sit in this very scary looking chair up here. So I will move. And I will give you a chance to introduce yourself, since we've heard from them, and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Thank you so much. My name is Dr. Michael Nzungi. I work with an organization called Innovate UK. I'm the country lead for Kenya. Innovate UK is the innovation agency of the UK, sort of equivalent to what we have in Kenya as Kenya, the Kenya National Innovation Agency. And they run a program in Africa in 3 countries, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. And at the core objective of that program is to catalyze UK-Africa collaborations in research, innovation, and funding solutions to scale innovations. So there's a lot of tech exchange we do between Kenya and the UK for the Kenya program. Thank you so much. I appreciate being here today.
Thank you, Michael. I'll actually start with you since you have I'd just like to ask what you think your role as an enabling organization is in MedTech, AI, and the healthcare space.
Sure, thanks. So the key, to start off, the key sectors we work in is healthcare and agriculture. And this is around innovation introduction in the two spaces, health and agriculture. And over time, I think the core role of what we do as enablers is really two things. One is to de-risk early stage innovation. So the early stages of testing, validation, building, typically require a lot of resourcing, maybe complex, fairly intricate, and that's at the core where we have the highest impact. And this could be whether it's seed funding or in kind. And the other role is, of course, around enabling or strengthening the ecosystem, whether it's supporting other stakeholders or capacity building. But over time, and I'm really happy to hear about TerraBot and a few other innovators we've worked with in AI, in healthcare in Kenya. Over time, I think I've learned that the guiding principles, there are 3 guiding principles in how to think about the opportunity for AI in healthcare. And for context, I started with the doctor. I'm a doctor, I'm a trained doctor as well, but now working within the innovation space. So the opportunity is, the first one is the size of the pain points. In healthcare, we have very large pain points, and this was a perfect example. Access to therapy or psychiatry services. Most specialties in Kenya typically have less than 100 people, so that's 100 psychiatrists. If it's diagnostics, where we have another big opportunity for AI, radiologists and pathologists, very few. And they typically work within urban centers. And even within the urban centers, they can barely match the demand. So you can see there's a big problem in the rural areas. So the pain points are really big. So there's an opportunity to deploy AI with a lot of impact and build AI with a lot of impact to solve for some of the challenges in healthcare. The second thing is, when building in AI in healthcare, we don't have legacy systems that will get in the way. And that means you can leapfrog many solutions. As an example, one of the solutions we worked with was looking at AI in mammography as a fast reader. And in Kenya right now, we have, there was a program that implanted mammography units in all the 47 county hospitals, but they are not in use. So if this solution works, that we've been working on in Meru County Hospital, you can see you can immediately replicate in 47 counties. So the opportunity to leapfrog is very big. The best example that we always use, sorry for using it today as well, is M-Pesa. We all know how M-Pesa leapfrogged financial inclusion, but there were no legacy systems to get in the way, or competitors or other things that could interrupt, that innovation. So that's a big opportunity for AI in healthcare as well. Now, the third thing is around building on existing, building on what is already existing, so that you can introduce cost efficiencies. Sometimes when we innovate, we can create new and parallel structures, and that can hinder adoption, especially for healthcare workers. So the healthcare workers, we've agreed, is, there are very few. So if you're going to introduce something that adds to their layer to, to more work for them, that's already a barrier to adoption. So innovation that is, builds on what is already existing, integrates on what is existing, is able to, you're able to have better adoption and building cost efficiencies. Yeah, so I think I wanted to share just those highlights on what we've learned, trying, of course, in our role in, building the ecosystem in healthcare innovation in Kenya.
Thank you very much, Dr. Michael. And so I have so many questions for Jocelyn, because now we're talking about wanting to innovate. There are so many pain points. But then I come back to my friend, was it Derek? Derek's question, which was a fantastic question. What is this privacy thing? And if it's going to get in the way of innovation, how do we balance those two things? These great pain points that we need to fix, and the need for privacy, ethics, governance. What do you say to all of that?
Thank you, Wambui. So I'll actually start with his question. And he said, why is privacy so important? Why do we care about privacy? If you get malaria and I get malaria, why do we care? And actually, I had someone say that privacy doesn't matter to Africans the other day. And I found it very interesting. And it was really in trying to compare other governance frameworks with our governance framework. So someone said in Europe, they're very individualistic. They care about the self and what I own. And in Africa, we don't really care about that, at least in our foundational culture. And this is just an example. If you think about property and how we owned property before the property ownership laws were introduced, it was very communal. It was the family, the community, the clan, and then the whole a larger group. The community went, getting bigger and bigger. So someone said that in Africa, we don't care about privacy as much as other people do, and so we should not borrow those laws. But I will disagree, just to the extent that I think this is about autonomy. So if you don't care that someone knows you have malaria, I might care that someone knows I have malaria. So I think when we are talking about privacy, for me, it's just about autonomy. And that's why consent is very, very key in achieving privacy. That's why we said the data subject has to say, yes, take that data, use it for that specific use that you've promised you're going to use it, and don't go beyond that. So I think that's just about autonomy. Now, in terms of balancing privacy, data protection, bias mitigation, all these human rights concerns with innovation, I think it's actually very achievable. And I'll just give an example of the Kenya National AI Strategy. So I've looked at a few strategies on the continent. Namibia has an AI strategy, Rwanda has an AI policy, and a few other countries. Currently, I think we have 16 countries on the continent. And if you look at each, you'll start to see what the priorities are. In the Kenya National AI Strategy, it actually recognizes healthcare as one of the key areas that AI would revolutionize. And what I noted is that the strategy prioritizes both innovation and governance almost to the same extent. And I think that's really important. And that's why I also mentioned earlier that we are creating governance frameworks as we go forward. Yeah. So because this is a new technology, it's not really new, but it's new in terms of how, to the extent to which we're using it, we have to govern it as we go. We have to adopt it and also adapt the proper governance mechanisms as we go. And so I think the way we do that is really just what we are doing here. We come and talk, and each person goes back to their work and they do what they do. If we have people in government here, if we have policy makers and people who draft policy, then they will take the ideas here and go and do that. So I think this is just how we do it. We have to balance it. And I don't think actually the law is usually behind innovation, as we like to say. I know it's often the reality, but I think it's because the law governs what's existing. So the law has to evolve with what comes to exist, yeah? Just the other thing I would mention in terms of how we can achieve proper governance mechanisms for AI in healthcare is, I'll take us back to what I was saying earlier, that much of our research in AI governance around 2023 was in mapping applications and then identifying risks and challenges. And right now we are going to the back end to see how we can fix those. Now, some of the challenges we identified, especially in 2023, other than privacy challenges and bias, was issues around capacity and infrastructure. And those were some of the issues that were making it difficult for us to adopt ethical AI, because as I mentioned, some of the tools that we were analyzing, they were from the West, they would come, they're not really relevant, or they're not contextually made for people in Africa, and then that brings biases, and then that might also maybe breach the privacy of people, because they'll have, so I'll give an example of someone who has a disability and they have to rely on someone else to help them because a system is more difficult for them to use. Is that making sense? Yeah, so I have to now rely on 3 other people to help me with something that if it was well curated for me, I would have just used it myself or maybe relied on one person. So I think infrastructure, skills and capacity, and also just innovation and investments in innovation, which is what my colleague is talking about here. I think if we just fix all that, we make sure that we're investing in infrastructure, we're investing in capacity and skills, and then we're investing in the people themselves and the people understanding how to use the tools, then we are able to achieve ethical AI.
Fine. Over to you, Caleb, because you have been navigating this. You told us you have over 20,000 users and patients. How have issues like ethics and governance affected you, either positively or negatively, in your journey with Therabot?
Wow. Most of the feedback that we get is users asking, can I see your data privacy sheet? And most again, the questions that they are asking is, what are you doing with my data? And is my data safe? And is my data being given back to AI and things like that? But then for us, what we did, because we knew that these questions were going to come, is we took all the therapy data, not for particular users, but then what therapists use to actually do these therapy things. That is what we trained our model with, in such a way that when you come to ask questions about your staff, your data, we don't keep your data. Your data is yours. And we are actually moving to Web3, whereby your data, you own your data and you do what you want with your data. But then to answer your question is, what we actually do is we make sure that in our terms and conditions, we actually make sure that if you come to Therabot, you have to actually read our terms and conditions, and it says, we don't use your data for training our models. Your data remains your data. And we actually were given a lawsuit the other day on matters of data. And we actually have to prove that the data that we're actually giving to the AI is not the user's data. But then actually, that is actually what we do here.
Thank you. I want to stick with you for a minute because, gosh, you said that you have a lot of users and patients that are not on the African continent.
Yes.
And so that tells me that you have users, very diverse users. And it makes me wonder how, going back to algorithmic bias, how are you handling the fact that the issues that we have in Kenya on the African continent are very different than the issues that are there in Asia or Europe or the US? One size cannot fit all, I imagine. So how do you deal with that if you're not then feeding back issues that you're seeing in different areas?
So we constantly train our models based on different articles and different materials that therapies used. And one of the challenges that we actually have in Kenya and Africa is we don't know where this data is kept. So you actually can't go and say now, because our main user base is Africa, so we want to use data that is African-based to train the models is really, really hard. And the data that is actually available is the data that is, for the Europe and the US, that is just like everywhere. But then how we actually do that is we have introduced something called personalization. So the more you text the AI or the more you talk to the AI knows you better. And actually, if you're an African and you talk to it, it will now get to know, okay, this is how you behave, this is how you are, and things like that. Yeah. And so the more you talk to it, the more it knows you better. But we are not using that data to train our models.
Okay, I don't understand that, but that's okay. Maybe someone else will ask the question in a way that will get to the bottom of how you're not using the data, but the algorithm knows you better.
Knows you better.
Seems like a contradiction in terms. However, I will move on. I'll move back to Dr. Michael. And the question I want to ask has to do with universal health coverage and how you feel, you're in the ecosystem. And I believe you have some thoughts about how AI in healthcare can help us meet universal health coverage.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that. So in terms of how we are anchored by the overall goal of the government around universal health coverage, I'll start by framing it using a quote one of my mentors uses a lot. And he says, collaboration is the new innovation. And what that means is most of us as actors in the ecosystem, we typically have to collaborate to achieve scale. Therabot will likely, as you said, you're now working with a community of psychiatrists. You'll go on to work with other, actors as well to scale your innovation. And so that, even from an ecosystem support perspective, there is no one organization that does everything, supporting innovators, whether it's from, financing or access to markets, scaling support, acceleration support, etc. So you'll typically find actors do only maybe one vertical. So one initiative I've seen work very well in this regard and in support for UHC is an initiative by the Innovation IDEA. It's an international organization of innovation. Development partners have come together under one umbrella called IDEA, and they've implemented a public sector scaling action lab in Kenya, right now being led by an organization called Insight Health Advisors. And so the premise for that is government, there are many innovations. So there's a big supply of innovators, just like there are many, many pain points. But how does government prioritize all this? And typically to scale, you want to scale through the public sector. So there's a big opportunity if you scale through public sector. Very few innovations achieve scale with time. But to achieve scale, you must be demand driven. So that innovation must actually be needed, and there must be a suitable scaling pathway. So this Action Lab, what they've done is bring together many organizations that are working in different, on the spectrum of that demand and scaling, and looking at supporting county governments, articulate that demand, understand where the need for innovation is mostly required, what is amenable to innovation, support them now to source those innovations. And there are many, of course, aggregators of innovators. And then through a suitable scaling pathway, whether that's a procurement process, a PPP, or another suitable adoption process, look to scale that innovation now in public sector. So we see this as the biggest opportunity to achieve UHC. Many counties have taken it on. Insight Health Advisors is now working with the Lake Region Economic Bloc that's around, so are more than 15 counties now working on this. So it shows you the government really wants to achieve UHC, but it may struggle with prioritizing and making sure the innovations it's adopting and looking to scale actually serve the communities in those counties.
Thank you. So let's say, and I'm going to send this to Josephine, that a lot of these innovations were AI, for example, let's say diagnostics. and we scale them, we put them out into the market, and the AI tools make a mistake. I mean, I know AI is not sentient, but let's say the AI tool makes a mistake. Who's to blame? Who do you sue? If I want to sue someone, who, yeah, what are you?
I don't know. Thank you for that question. Actually, that's a big challenge in any conversation about AI deployment, because not because someone is not responsible, but because there's quite a number of people in the ecosystem, in the AI life cycle that you can blame. So there's someone who collected the data. So let's say it's an issue of bias. Let's say an AI system was developed, it doesn't recognize my face, I don't know, for some reason, and that causes some harm. So then that has breached my right to equality under the Kenyan Constitution. So yes, there's that route of going to court and saying that my rights have been breached. But then who am I going to attach as the respondent? Who am I going to say has breached my rights? There's the person who collected the data. Maybe they didn't go to the right population or to diverse populations. There's someone who curated the data. There's someone who used that data, and there was an exchange, actually, there was a change of hands. Someone used the data to create a system. Someone bought the system from the designer, and someone, I don't know, bought the system from another person, and then someone finally it's released. So that's like 5 parties. That's about 5 parties in the ecosystem, in the life cycle that someone might say they want to blame. But the challenge comes in actually just assigning responsibility. So that's why I'm saying I don't know. I really don't know, because my personal opinion will be all those people are responsible to a certain extent. But then how do we identify that responsibility? And I think I would just take us back to impact assessments, which is what I was talking about as one of the just ethical considerations, where if we conduct impact assessment at every stage of the life cycle, then we can also flag the problems where they arose. So if at the data collection and curation stage, there's an impact assessment, we might see that the data maybe meant to serve Kenyans was only collected in Nairobi County. And then that doesn't serve people maybe in Kitui County or people in Meru County or people in Turkana County. And if we are able to just see that problem at that stage and have it documented, then later when someone is suing someone, they can say, oh, that was identified at that stage and someone didn't fix the problem. So that will really just be my answer, that impact assessment at every stage, or at least recognizing the risks and the problems at each stage, will be the way to go. Yeah.
And Caleb, over to you as an innovator. How have you done this? How have you, even though you say that the AI gets to know someone and you're still not using the data, how have you thought about the different players in that chain and how to deal with the ethics and governance around your development and implementation?
Oh, good question. Again, impact assessment. Our engineers, we hold everyone accountable in such a way that the data that you're collecting, is it safe? The AI, is it going to give safe responses? We created something called an AI agent that actually, before the agent responds to you as a person, it first checks, is this response actually safe? Is it going to give us problems at the end of the day? But then again, we have tried to push actually this documentation to our terms and conditions, making sure that we are telling everyone that when the AI misbehaves or something, kindly, bear with us for now, because, we are still actually in that place of development and stuff. But then actually, just like to answer your question in the shortest way, is we have always tried to communicate to our users in actually every place and terms and conditions and every other thing, that, you know what, these things do happen for now, but then we are trying to actually make it better so that it doesn't repeat something like this, or, as we continue, it's going to get better and better and better. Yeah.
So, Dr. Michael, as a doctor, as a physician, first do no harm. How do you feel about all of this?
Yes, actually, thanks for that. I wanted to add to what you were saying. Um, one of the ways is, so just to use an example of the AI innovator we worked with on breast cancer in Meru County Referral Hospital. So the AI is a mammography triage platform. So it's a fast reader. So you're training the model, especially in our context. As you said, most of the data is external. So you really have to do a lot of work to train it locally. But it's a fast reader. So it's increasing the speed and accuracy of the radiologist. So the radiologist is still the last person to sign off what that AI platform has done. And so a lot of what is happening, at least for now, until, as just talking to, most of the governance and regulation will continue to adapt and, work for AI innovations. But for most of them, what I've seen, especially in diagnostics, it's mostly working as a fast reader, increasing the speed, increasing the accuracy of the radiologists or pathologists, but there's still a human at the back who has to sign off and own that report, right? You also don't want your chest X-ray to be owned by, so at least for now, that's happening, and it's helpful for healthcare to build the trust for AI solutions. But there's another project that is happening around decision support by a big primary healthcare chain in Kenya. And what they are doing is training the model to help the doctor or the clinician with decision support. When you come in and you share your symptoms, and there's they are training the model in a way that it can give you a good care pathway. So send this person to the lab for these labs, send them, this is a likely diagnosis, do these labs, this is a likely treatment that may be required. But you can still, you see, there's still somebody to verify that and sign it off. So a lot of how we are training the models now is still has that layer of protection to build the trust. But more importantly, the other reason is because we just don't have the data. As an example, one of the UK companies we were looking at in doing the AI mammography, in the UK, they already have all this data. It's almost super accurate, as you are saying, that the AI diagnostics are becoming even more and more accurate than a human who may be tired or may have to deal with so many patients in a day, etc. So elsewhere, they have the data. There are better structures on how to govern that data, and they've been able to train this more and more. But yeah, we have to start somewhere, and I know for sure we'll be able to roll out some of these solutions in especially screening or decision support, treatment support, optimization, health system support, etc., leveraging AI.
Thank you, panelists. I'd like to open it up to questions at this point. And I see my friend in the back is ready to maybe reiterate his question. So let's get a microphone, but please make it brief and so that everyone can get a chance to pipe in.
Yeah, so let me introduce myself again. My name is Gary, and I am the founder and CEO of an AI institute. And what we are trying to do at yeah, the mic kind of makes me nervous. But so what we are doing at PowerNax is that we want to create the smartest AI system in Africa. And we are not just talking about it, we are actually creating it. As we speak, we are in closed beta. So we are releasing our test to only a few institutions. Now, if you want to test the product right now, you can go to powerlife.com. Now, my questions goes to Terabot. I can't remember exactly, but there was a certain paper, scientific paper, I think last year, the details are foggy. But there was a certain paper by some university in the US, and they had created a chatbot called Terabot. Are you related to them?
In a way, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you create the AI?
No, we never created the AI.
All right. The reason I'm asking is because I believe this is my own take. I believe AI in Africa should have a very different view. Like we should have the smartest systems on the continent. We should have the smartest systems in the world. So the question is, where is the talent? Now at PowerNax, we have actual solutions, actual AI agents that work. Now my greatest feature, I am the developer, is we have an ability to turn a voice. You see, when you go see a doctor, you talk to each other. In the US, there's a company called Scribe, and they like turn voice into notes. Now at PowerNax, what we have is a very amazing feature where we turn voice into medical files. And what the doctor there was saying is that when you say there's a human layer, we call that human in the loop. So even though the AI is the one that is running behind the system, the human is always in the loop. Another question I wanted to ask is that you have said privacy in Africa is important, but what is your take on synthetic data? I mean, AI algorithms are becoming better and better every day. So with enough compute, I can simulate a person. I can simulate thousands and thousands of data. So I think Africa should not be focusing on privacy.
Derek, I'm not sure you have a question in there. I think other people might have questions they
Okay,
might want to
okay.
ask, and we have limited time. So if you can
Thank you.
pass the microphone, please, to someone else who might want to ask a question. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Isom. My question goes to, okay, think it can go to all of you. In the moats, economic moats. Right now, everybody's building on top of AI. From your experience and building on several AI startups, what are those economic moats that you've been able to find out that make you unique? Because right now, almost anybody can go to Lovable and create a beautiful UI, go to ChatGPT, use the API keys, train a knowledge model on top of it, and release it. What are, from your experience, what are those economic moats that make your AI startup different from another AI startup, or your vertical AI or vertical industry or all that? What makes you invaluable to that industry? Like that's something I would love to hear.
So are you asking how to commercialize?
Yes.
How to make money?
Okay, that's going a bit too far, but what makes your audience stick with you instead of leaving you? Yeah.
Okay, for us, it's the personalization part. I know ChatGPT offers this, but then the context of Africa and the context of therapy that gives us an edge. And then, our tagline is we are trying to make therapy cheaper and accessible anywhere, anytime. So with even 50 shillings, you can get therapy. Yeah.
Now this goes to the next one, intellectual property. When you're using AI, now where do you do intellectual property? Where does it like copyright something? I don't know if you've come across that and if you can help even us AI founders of AI startups to be able to understand around that, which to copyright or how to go around that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. So allow me to address two issues regarding AI and IP, intellectual property. So one, you asked where your IP starts, what your ownership looks like. So software, I think, is protected under copyright in Kenyan law. If I'm wrong, someone correct me, but I think software is corrected. So that's number one. Number two, the issue that we have been identifying in our research is that there's still no clarity in terms of training data, and whether that actually research, whether that's allowed under fair use exemptions as sort of a form of research, because I think we've seen a lot of companies, a lot of AI companies are being sued for using copyrighted data. So a lot of companies scraped the internet, they scraped, for example, there's a famous case of the New York Times. They scraped the internet for all the articles that New York Times has been publishing. And the New York Times, and in other cases, you're seeing creators, writers, musicians. I think, unfortunately, the musicians lost a case recently. They've been saying that that's copyrighted information. Why is a company using this information to create a tool and then, charge some money for that same tool? So that's been a challenge. And I think the legal frameworks, again, are clarifying that as we go. I think the cases that we are seeing are what are clarifying. Now, I saw someone make a very interesting argument on this, and they were obviously a developer, and they said that all information that's online is fair game. Just take anything and use it, and no one should ask you any questions. But of course, on the other hand, we have to protect people's creations, mind creations. So as an IP law researcher, I will go with the creators, meaning that anytime you use information that is copyrighted, then you have to at least pay something or, get a license for that information. I know that's very difficult, especially when talking about smaller startups. It's a difficult conversation, but it's a conversation that can be had. But just in terms of licensing and making sure that creators legally use data, there's a new license, a new sort of ownership model that is being pushed by Kenyan and, let me say, African policymakers and African regulators, where they're saying, for example, even companies that come to villages and to populations, say Nairobi, and just collect data, there has to be ownership. The people that are giving you that data own that data. The same way when Meta, because they confirmed this, I don't know if anyone here is from Meta, they confirmed that they scraped, Facebook data from 2007. And I think people in most continents other than the EU are not offered any protections from Meta using all your personal information that you've been putting on Facebook and using it to train models. Now, the solution that's being offered is that how do we make sure that populations own their data? Meaning, if you take it, return some value, at least in terms of money or something, return some value to the people. Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Because I've heard that in some places, the process of cleaning and processing data can be protected as intellectual property. Is that the case here? Or what do you know about that?
Thank you. Not to my knowledge. I think the Copyright Act in Kenya, what it protects is software. So when you create a software that performs a specific action, which I think most I don't know what to call them. Let's say a model, that's software. Yeah. When you create a model, then that's something you've actually created and you own. So I don't know about that, the curation process. I don't know where that's protected, but to my knowledge, in Kenya, it's not.
Nice. So the first question is from Jasmine, and the question is, how can AI be more carefully curated to fit the needs of patients who only speak local languages like Swahili or Meru or the Luo?
Who wants to take that?
Okay, so even at Therabot, that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that it's localized to different languages, therapy in Luo. So it's very expensive, number one, to bring something like that. But it's just like basically taking 20 people who speak different languages together, recording their voices and giving back to AI to actually train them more to give you to what you want. Yeah, but it's very, very expensive. Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't know about the expensive part. I wanted to just give a very optimistic view of that, because I've been hearing a lot of projects. Again, as I pointed out, around 2023, the challenges we were identifying was that creators did not have access to data. There was no African data sets for creating Afrocentric solutions. But then in the last 2 years or so, there have been a lot of projects creating African data sets, Kiswahili data sets, the Luo data sets, Kikuyu, all kinds, all sorts of languages. So I was going to just offer that, but it's interesting to hear then that even when those local language data sets are created or sort of made, because I know of some that are open source, then it's still expensive to use them for the creators. So that's interesting. Yeah.
And I think a part of that, and then I'll come to you, is that even if you create a data set and it's not a healthcare data set, it's a general data set, it's not readily available for people who are very specific in therapy or very specific in diagnostics and things like that. So you still have to do quite a bit of work to create a data set that actually speaks the language of healthcare, for example. Over to you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Valentine Kamau, and thank you to the panelists for such an insightful discussion. So I just have a few short questions just for the three of you. So for Caleb Therabot, with the 21,500 people you mentioned, what's the biggest misconception about using AI in mental health? We know it's very emotionally charged and everything about the stigma. So what's the biggest misconception you've experienced? So then, does he first answer? Then I just.
I think the biggest misconception that every other person still has is not everyone still trusts AI fully to give them their data. People still think that if I talk about my problems here with AI, I'll get them in ChatGPT or I'll get them somewhere, someone else will still be using them, which is not actually true. So yeah, that is the biggest misconception. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then for Dr. Michael, so with the work you're doing at UK Innovate, how do you identify innovations that are scalable versus one that is just exciting, like an exciting prototype with all these innovations that are coming up? So how do you tell it is scalable, it will actually benefit the people it's meant for?
Yeah, thanks for that. So we do this through our lead customer program. When working on, I'd mentioned our collaborations typically have a UK-Kenya, equitable relationship. Again, we've worked on many projects. But I'm using the AI examples because of course, we are focusing on AI in healthcare. So like in that project, the innovator is Kenyan. We had to bring on board a complementary partner from the UK to help them with integration and systems. But more importantly, there has to be a lead customer. So that is very important. There has to be somebody who wants to adopt that innovation in the first instance. So in this case, they were able to pitch and get a hospital. There's another project we've worked on called open flexure microscopy that is also trying to train models and solve for the few number of pathologies that we have. Again, the partner is Meru University Science and Technology and University of Glasgow, but then there is a lead customer, right? So what that does for us is it helps us, again, to something I was saying earlier, innovation for scale, you typically want it to be demand driven. Is it needed? So that is not just another solution. So that's lead customer then helps us test in real environments, real time, and now get the data around scalability and we've seen projects go on to attract a lot of support. Last week, I know one that got more than 300,000 US, for instance. And part of the reason is that investment has come because we were able to test and the validity in a real environment, right? There's an adopter, besides the innovator, and you can see how the impact it's having in real time. And that typically will attract other investors to come on board and support you as an innovator.
Okay.
Question, just to be fair, because we are almost out of time.
Hi, my name is Hafsa. I'm a health consultant with a background in nursing, specifically pediatrics. My question is for Dr. Michael. Do you believe that AI will never be in healthcare? We won't ever rely on AI completely for the diagnosing and the treatment for patients. Do you believe that there will always be, because I am of that belief that there will always have to be a healthcare professional behind the AI, kind of going with it, seeing if it's correct? Or do you believe that there will come a time, based on your experience right now, that we can just fully rely on AI to fully diagnose and treat patients and do follow-ups?
Thanks for that. Yes, and the AI engineer called it the human loop. It's difficult to remove it in healthcare. That human touch is very important when you go to see or to seek help and go for care. But there's a role that AI will play. So AI is more of a tool. So when you use, similarly to, again, the obvious example, when you use M-Pesa, what you're trying to achieve is transfer money to somebody else, right? So the likely transformation that AI will have, especially in healthcare, as we deploy more and more impactful health AI solutions, is to leapfrog access and cost. So as an example, as a pathologist or a radiologist, I can be seated in Nairobi. And because of AI as a fast reader, it increases your speed by more than 100 times. And so you can be sorting out a whole county, Lamu County, all their radiology challenges, right? Whether it's images or pathology, etc. But because the AI is your fast reader, it makes you very fast and increases your accuracy as well. So we may not, even if we are not eliminating the human loop, there's a huge transformation we are making. So we are able to get access that was not there before. We are able to reduce costs, right? And we are doing all this while building on already existing systems. Like I was giving the example of the mammography unit. Just to give you another example, you have these solutions even in surgery, for instance, where several surgeons in different locations, it's already happening in Kenya, in Nairobi, can collaborate, and they're in different locations to serve a patient. So you can see the tool has helped you improve quality, improve access, because you can have that expertise from the UK or the US and Kenya to serve you here in Nairobi. So the goal may not essentially be that do we take out the human loop? I think for me, the goal is the transformation we achieve in access, increasing quality, bringing costs down, improving efficiency, optimizing treatment, like the primary healthcare chain I was talking about, that is building a model where by the time you come in from triage, your data is already telling the clinician what to do, right? So that increases efficiency and accuracy and speed as well.
Speak for doctors, but on a light note, I am a Star Trek and Star Wars fan. And I'm telling you, when I look at some of that, what looks like fantasy today, I suspect that someday it's not going to be fantasy. And in some places, AI is already replacing certain functions. And I truly believe that someday we're going to be able to take some of those functions that we believe can only be done by humans and be able to have AI take away some of those very rote diagnoses and rote things and leave the doctor available to do the more complex things that a doctor or a nurse should be doing. That's my opinion. And I hope I don't get murdered for it or anything. I think we'll take one. I know you've been waiting to ask, but we are kind of out of time. Maybe we'll let the gentleman ask a question after the one online, and then we'll have to wrap it up so that you have time to network. Okay, so yes.
Hi, thank you, guys. My name is Dr. Ndirangu. I'm a clinician and digital health / AI enthusiast. Quick one to Dr. Michael. How are we thinking about the problem of human capital? We're seeing in some huge AI companies in the US, elsewhere, that are laying off workers because AI is doing a lot of the tasks that, previously humans were doing. And even as we think about healthcare, and soon, if there's one radiologist taking care of a whole county, and every year we are churning out radiologists from different universities, what happens to the other radiologists? So how are we thinking about, should we be reskilling, should we be upskilling, or should we just learn how to do carpentry and plumbing?
Yeah, so there's, to answer that, as part of a conversation that was talking about power once, our electrification, our grid, and at the time we were talking about the capacity we have, and sometimes we pay for unused capacity even in power. And one thing I realized from that conversation is sometimes the scale of the problem is so large that is the last problem you should be thinking about. And healthcare is a good example. Where we are now in terms of our system, in terms of the number of medics we need, nurses, clinicians, every cadre, we are barely scratching the surface, right? According to WHO standards. So like we have maybe less than 100 or at most 100. I forget the actual number, a small number. And when we say a radiologist serving a facility in a county somewhere, that's one CT machine, and it can only probably serve 100 people. The county has 30 million, sorry, not 30. The county urban center has over 30,000 people. So you can see the radiologist is barely scratching the surface of the need, even if they're able to do that from Nairobi. So the pain point in healthcare, in achieving access, in infrastructure is so big that by the time we say AI is replacing medics and nurses, and it's not happening soon. So yes, please go to med school. It's difficult, but by all means, don't not go there and train in healthcare. It's a good profession. AI will not replace you soon.
This conversation and pass it from.
So for me, the biggest takeaway, of course, and I haven't heard from Therabot, it's very exciting to see of many innovators coming on board to build solutions for our healthcare system. And hopefully we can see more and more of these solutions scale and achieve impact. There's just a big opportunity to transform our healthcare system leveraging AI. So it's exciting to see, and please, if you can build. The opportunity is massive. There is no, to your question earlier to Therabot, I wouldn't say you need to be distinctive. You just need to solve a problem. The goal is not to be distinctive as an innovator. Of course, it's to achieve impact and solve a problem. And there are so many intractable problems in our health system that AI could solve for. So just to encourage any innovators out there to keep working at it and building. Thanks.
Thank you. My takeaway as an AI governance professional, I think, is that there's a lot of building happening. And I am very tempted to go to every location you mentioned where there's applications to just see how deployment is being done and then support, so I'm really happy, and I've learned so much. And In going back to my primary client, the patient, I think there's a lot of solutions being created, and I'm more curious and more intentional about how I can support that process.
I think for me is going back to look at how data is going to be structured, going back to look at how the African context of data is going to be looked for, and actually how people are going to consume this data. Because at the end of the day, as an African, I want African data, I want African voices, I want African context. And so our word to you guys is let's innovate. AI is going to come to change how we think, change how we do things. And the more you use AI, the more you're going to conquer your industry. And again, AI is not going to take your jobs, just like use it to actually make things faster and automate so that you do more greater things. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And because I don't want to have the last word, I actually want to put a couple of people here on the spot. A shout out to East Africa Biodesign Fellows. And one of you is going to have to tell us in a couple of sentences about the East Africa Biodesign, what we've been talking about.
Okay, good afternoon. Good evening. My name is Susan Gitau. I'm an East Africa Biodesign Fellow, and these are my colleagues. We are very happy to be here. And so to briefly explain about the program, it's a collaboration between the Kenyatta University, University of Rwanda, and also the Stanford University. And sorry, I'm a bit nervous, but yeah, it was on a spotlight. So the overview of the program, we usually do 3 phases: the clinical immersion, which is the identify phase. Then we also have the invent phase, and we also have the implementation phase. So the identify phase, you go to the hospitals where you do identify the needs, and after identification, you go to invent phase, like brainstorming, you find solutions, and then the implementation phase. I'm just a bit nervous, but yeah, that is the general idea of the whole program. Maybe, yeah? Okay, yeah, so the main highlight of the biodesign process, we usually need-oriented. So instead of going the way of the tech push, you go to the point of the need pull. So in this case, instead of designing a product and going to find where you can apply it, you go to the patients, identify their needs and their pain points, and after the need identification, then you think of a solution. So that is the main approach. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan. Sorry to ambush you, but I thought it would make Josephine very, very happy to hear about that process. And I think that brings us to the end of what I think has been a really great discussion around AI, MedTech, and healthcare. And before we invite you to some snacks in the back of the room and some extended networking where you can ask other questions of the panelists or each other, I'm going to hand it over to June, who is going to take care of a couple of logistics.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for coming. So in the next few minutes, you're going to scan these QR codes. This is basically to help us know more about the IVE program and also just connect and just learn more, and even if you want to sign up for the program. So just please pull up your phones and scan them. If you don't have data, you can always take a picture. And lastly, this is our feedback form. Please scan it and always feel free to give us feedback on what we can do better or what you really enjoyed through the entire program. Once you are done, you can always go to the back and network, connect as you enjoy some light snacks. But just remember, you cannot go eat before scanning the QR code. So you have to sit here first.